Shalom. This week, name of our Torah portion is Behar. That means on the mountain. Now, last week we looked at this new big elevated plain that becomes this great, excellent mountain on which the New Jerusalem will be located upon. So if you haven't listened to this study yet, it will be advisable to watch the teaching on that, because I use some of the fundamental things that we discover within the layers of the city and within the levels of the cycles that creates the soul, of which the Jasper level is the bottom one that has to do with the nations. Now, Leviticus, I think it's 21 that we're in now, forgot, is about a reflection on Exodus 34, and it's the repeat of the events when Moses went up the mountain. And this is additional information that Yahweh gave Moses when he was on the mountain, specifically in the time frame after they broke the commandment of building the golden calf, where Yahweh revealed his 13 attributes of grace, and when he went up again to get the second set, roughly in that time frame, this is where this new commandment of the Sabbath for the land comes in. So it's a bit jumping up and down, and you need to keep your wits about you in order to understand the sequence and the context. It's similar to the book of Revelation. When you read it, it sort of flow into a timeline, and then there's just something, that's revealed right in the middle, and then after that it just continues, and it can throw you. You can make a wrong assumption on the events if you don't understand how those things work. Now, Yahweh does this for a specific purpose. He wants a foundational truth to be laid first before he can reveal more. So at the time when we did Exodus 34, we had no idea of the mountain that we discovered last week. The reason we discovered the mountain last week is in our prophetic timeline that's overlaying the whole book of Exodus and Leviticus, that dealt with the building and completion of the tabernacle, and all the instructions were given for the construction of the tabernacle while Moses was on the mountain receiving the 2 tablets, and then the second set of tablets during that whole time frame. So they are all Shavuot topics. The tabernacle is a Shavuot topic. The tabernacle is a 10 commandments topic. Everything is interweaved with the 10 commandments and Shavuot and everything that pertains to that. That makes Shavuot the greatest feast of them all. It sits right in the middle in the menorah. That's the middle branch. That's the most important branch when you place the 7 festivals on the menorah. And Philu was a historical writer, a Jewish person who I believe were a disciple of Yeshua in the 1st century after the first coming of Messiah. And he was a prominent figure regarding the Jewish traditions. And he wrote a paper or a book or a statement or whatever you call it regarding the laws of Yahweh, specifically in one of the chapters, the 7 festivals, where he revealed the feast of Shavuot in the context of first fruits. And the way he portrayed it is like first fruits is the starting point of Shavuot, and he calls that the great feast. And then he says there's a greater feast, which has to do with the counting of the Omer, that bring you to a point. And then he talks about the greatest feast, which is the continuation of the counting of the Omer, that basically reveals the idea of Pentecost from a New Testament perspective. So that was his insight. But he had the idea of the 3 festivals, the great, the greater, and the greatest. But they are all of the same kind. Now that's something we learned in our previous Torah portions is to be after Yahweh's kind. And now we see there's festivals after the greatest feast kind, which is Shavuot. And that is the pinnacle of everything. The entry point to access Shavuot is Pesach, the Passover, which has to do with the birth process. Now we're going to look at a few numbers in the Gematria that support that notion and idea as well. They are actually born out of the womb of Egypt. And we discovered that in the previous Torah portion, that this whole experience in this life within our creation cycle is the womb. And the birth is the time of the Day of the Lord, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, the great offering, also the Day of Judgment. Everything aligns. And that's where the renewed bodies will be born, and also the breech babies will be born, but will nearly die. Those who do not align with the birth canal. So those are a bit of foundational things that we looked at. So we look at the pregnant woman, and that's also in line with the cleansing of the women. We have the prophetic time frame of what we read from the beginning to the end, which is Genesis to Revelation, which is the work of Mashiach. And that is for him to come and tabernacle with us. And there's a cleansing process that needs to happen, and that's the starting point of Leviticus, to reveal to us the state of this earth in the fallen state that is called the womb. And there's a lot of uncleanness or leprosy. The 5 sacrifices, or the 5 types of sacrifices, has to do with the cleansing. And we also had the atonement offering, which is the ultimate cleansing offering that deals with intentional sin. So all of that is in preparation for the tabernacle of Yahweh that will come down on the mountain, which we touched on last week, which is the New Jerusalem, which is towards the end of this prophetic overlay timeline. So we are in the thick of it now. We are stepping back onto the mountain prior to the coming of this city on top of the mountain, and we're in the time frame of Moshe and the theme of Shavuot and the 10 commandments and additional commandments that was given regarding the Sabbath. Now last week we saw that the Moedim was the center point of our menorah branches of the themes within last week's Torah portion, Emor. And the 7 festivals and the Moedim is basically the main point, or the most important thing about to speak Emor. And it's also to do with sight, to see. And we made the connection between speaking words and to see and have insight into the spiritual things. So I'm just doing this little introduction to give you an idea of where we are, where we're heading prophetically, where are we heading within a time frame of Israel and Moses, and what it all means in relation specifically to last week's study, which is the creation of the soul. And I can't wait to share everything with you. This is a bit of an appetizer. We are going to look at the 8 ascensions of Moses up the mountain and what that means. So that's just something to make you a bit more eager to want to listen to this next one. So I will reveal more this week, and I'll speak to you soon. I hope you have a lovely day. Shalom.